welcome back to Breaking Bet. I got my guy Brad Thomas in here with me. Brad, it's been a minute. How are you, man? What's new in life?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a fun little, I don't know, off season, I guess, right? Like recalibrated, kind of built out some new stuff for the new season. Excited to give it a real test drive as we get into, the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, obviously, the last bit I've done was, really surrounding the MLB draft. And
Yeah.
honestly, I've been quiet for the last like 5, 6 weeks. Living life down here in South Florida, grinding. Bearing through a pretty hot summer. Um, but man, like I'm excited as hell for NFL to be back. Sundays on the couch, got 17 different games going on. You got all the bets, the fantasy, all the beer, all that shit ready to go. And honestly, it's been a minute since we really caught up. It's been a while, and I'm really glad that we're running this back for year two. We had a pretty fun year last year. We got some really good hits, and I'm excited to bring in what we learned last year to this year and apply it. And it's gonna be another big season.
Yeah, dude. I'm really excited. It's crazy because like I feel like this season we're not like, oh, this team is definitely going to win. Last season, even though everyone was wrong, I feel like there was really strong opinions on who was going to win. This year it feels like there's a lot more parity, a lot more teams have a chance to win. Maybe that's because not a lot of people early thought the Seahawks were going to win last year, and people have a lot more optimism thinking if the Seahawks can get it done, we probably can get it done too.
I mean, it's crazy because how many times have we seen a team like Seattle, throughout the years? Like, hey, their defense is really good. They got some weapons. Their quarterback is a game manager, and they're good. But, a lot of those teams didn't put it all together.
Yeah.
Seattle was great all year, and then they really got hot when it counted. And look, man, kudos. I'm happy Seattle won. I'm happy for Sam Darnold. They were a great team. That They deserved it. It's crazy though, right? Because throughout the whole year, it's like, okay, look, man, like obviously Seattle's really good. They're gonna have a chance to go far. They have JSN who's heating up. Which, by the way, I think me and you were all over the JSN hype train.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't bet him to an offensive player of the year. Um, their defense is gonna be great, but Sam Darnold is he gonna be enough? And I feel like most of the time, like 99 out of 100, I feel like we'd be right in saying no. Like I just think Darnold's not going to be enough for them, and he was. And then you look at New England. They had an incredibly easy schedule. Mike Vrabel, ran a hell of a season last year. Drake May,
Yeah.
they managed to get that done. But now this year, like you said, there's a lot of parity outside of like the Rams, for instance. Seattle potentially repeating, but heading into this year, other than the parity, what are you really looking at for 2026? Do you have any sort of, I guess, crystal ball of what you're looking at for this year?
There's two things that I'm looking at. And I want to be able to tell this pretty early. I want to see how teams are playing on the offensive line, and I want to see how the quarterback play is. What we noticed about the biggest difference between the Seahawks and the Patriots in that Super Bowl is both had good quarterback play throughout the season, but it was the Patriots that continuously had problems keeping Drake May protected. And that is how fine the margin is, right? It wasn't a terrible offensive line unit for the Patriots, but it was a dang good Seahawks unit, good unit for the Seahawks. I want to see the teams that have taken the next step to kind of protect their quarterback because quarterback play is so much easier when you're kept upright.
Yeah, dude. That's definitely a cornerstone of the NFL. I think for me, you know, and I hate to say this but I'm very critical. But I feel like, and it's not just with the NFL; it's with any sport. I feel like I'm very critical, but I just call it how I see it, and I try to be very fair with everybody when I'm critiquing. The NFL was a lot of slop last year, and
Yeah.
I get it. There's a lot of volume, especially with the extra game. That's going to happen. But I feel like over the years, as the NFL, there's been a lot more slop. There's only a handful of really good games where it's like absolute cinema on the NFL stage. This year, I'm looking at maybe can we increase that a little bit? Could we have some of these teams that are really good stay there, and then have some of like the lower middle tiers, really step up? Could we get more quality NFL? Could we get a clearer picture instead of like everybody beating the shit out of each other? We get like a much clearer picture of who's for real, maybe around the midpoint of the season. Now, obviously, as it does every single year, unfortunate injuries kind of derail and force us to change how we have to operate and handicap certain teams and games, etc. So really, I'm just looking at maybe a little bit more quality throughout the year on a consistent basis.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Brad, I mean, last year, we're talking about those two teams. The team that we both loved last year coming into the year, I remember, was Tampa Bay. I thought it was maybe the last shot for Tampa Bay to really make that deep run with the roster they had. I mean, they were looking good for a while, and then injuries just started taking their toll, and it was really hard for them to get back on track. Their defense was pitiful for most of the year, and they just couldn't stop the bleeding. Um, Tampa Bay's done. I think Tampa's done, but are we looking at any dark horses this year?
Man, this is kind of crazy, but I think of all the teams that would be a dark horse, I'd probably have to go with Jacksonville. Um, Year two in the Cohen system, this was a pretty solid team last year. I think they did everything right except for shine in the big moments. Well, now they get the big moments again. Um, it's just going to be a good defense, and the offense, is probably going to take another step forward now that they're in year two of this system.
I think that's a pretty good look. Jacksonville. Listen, in terms of being critical, I'm also man enough to admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong on Jacksonville. Jacksonville was a great team last year. They showed a lot of promise. There was a lot of things I liked. And I think for Jacksonville, them stepping up again in year two with Liam Cohen is definitely something I can see. There was just so much to like about Jacksonville. Obviously, Travis Etienne's gone. So let's see what the running game looks like with the new backfield. Is LaQuint Allen gonna be the guy there? Like what does that look like? So I totally understand that with Jacksonville. The AFC South is wide open. I think realistically, there's four teams that can win that. Um, Bishal Tootin, LaQuint Allen, Brian Thomas, Parker
Yeah,
Washington is going to take a huge step this
yeah, he
year.
is.
I think that was a big one. That was a guy that how many times in the middle of the year do we recognize the Parker Washington glow up, and we're starting hammering this guy for touchdowns. Then he just took off like an Amon Ra. It was a real Amon Ra 2020 end of the season run for Parker Washington.
It was.
So I think that was a really good look there. But for my team, and I don't know if you could really call it a dark horse because they did really well last year and they got robbed. Tell me why I shouldn't be a believer again in Denver. I think
Yeah, I think you should. I think
right.
so. I didn't know if I didn't. Okay, so I have Denver rated pretty highly this year. I have them fourth in my ratings, and I didn't know if you would consider them a dark horse. I think this team's
So
going to
so
be.
that's what I'm thinking. Like if you remember last year, like one of our first shows in the summer last year, Denver was my bet to win the AFC West.
Yeah,
At like what was it? It was like 3-1, something like that. I have to roll back the tape, but that's the thing. Obviously, Denver did so well, so I don't know if you could really call them a dark horse. But we get lost with the Rams, the Niners, the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Seahawks. Like all those teams are gobbling up a lot of the attention right now, and I understand that, but it just feels like despite the season Sean Payton and Denver had last year, they're not being as respected as
yeah.
they should be in the market overall. And I feel like Denver's kind of fallen back into that, hey, you know what? Like their team, maybe that could be good again. Let's see if they can repeat it. But I gotta be honest, I feel like Denver has a good a chance as anybody in the AFC to represent in the Super Bowl.
No, I totally agree. And I think the funny thing about Denver, and I think this is like common with like betting fans, period, is they love the shiny new toy, right? Like every year they kind of own in on a team. And then when a shiny new toy doesn't meet the expectations or doesn't kind of go as far as everyone wants, they forget about them. But Denver is not just some toy that you discard. I think Denver is going to be very good this year. And a lot of people are quietly sleeping on them because I think that shiny new toy that kind of took place was the Patriots. But I think this go around, Denver's got the Patriots number. Patriots won't have as easy of a schedule to kind of coast through. Not saying that they didn't earn it, but you know what I mean? Like that when you add the level of difficulty to the schedule, it just makes life so much harder to stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. And you look at Denver, bro. It was a big pickup with Jalen Waddle. Like that's, look, I love Jalen Waddle. He had some great moments in Miami, and in all fairness, it's a guy that you're probably not going to call a wide receiver one, but he is a very good number two, and he's very strong at his craft. Like big speed guy. Cortland Sutton's still there. You got a two-headed monster with Dobby and RJ Harvey. Bo Nix is getting better every year. She'll have a great defense. You have a coach in Sean Payton who's been there, done that. And look, man, I understand the AFC West is, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs. Are they going to be back? Is this the year that they get back to greatness with the title run? The Chargers are always a threat because their roster is really good. You're in the prime of Justin Herbert's career. And, obviously the Raiders are the Raiders. But, I feel like we get lost because Kansas City is always, in the hunt as the team to be in the AFC. But I just feel like the horses in Denver could be a team that I really, really think has a chance to make a deep run this year. Brad, what about teams to fade? What are maybe some of the
Oof.
in terms of like obviously we're not talking about like the Cardinals or the Dolphins or the teams that are projected to suck. We're talking about the teams that are maybe like middle tier that people are buying in on, or maybe some of the top 12 teams, one of them that might fall out. Like, is there anybody in that group that really fits, your thought as a flop this year?
Um, I have a couple teams that people probably might turn their nose up to. I'm probably lower on the Indianapolis Colts than a lot of people. I have Colts rated about 20th in my power rankings, and I think that's a pretty fair spot. Quarterback coming off a major injury, and it's not like a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes where he has earned the benefit of the doubt. It's Daniel Jones who had the fantastic season before he got hurt, but he doesn't have the benefit of the doubt, right? Like where we think he's just going to come back to that level. Jonathan Taylor, another year under his belt, all those hits under his belt. This team just has already been having kind of these wide receiver issues. And I didn't change my power rankings yet with the Josh Downs issues. And now Tyler Warren is dealing with some groin injury that, I mean, he got helped off the field. It was enough for them to make a big deal out of it. That could change that offensive path right there for them. So I have them probably lower than most.
That's the worst part, isn't it? Like when guys get hurt in the summer and the season's
Yeah.
right around the corner and you don't know the severity of it. It changes how you have to handicap. You start second guessing yourself like, okay, is this guy going to be good to go? Is he going to make a swift recovery? Is he even going to be hurt? If he does come back and he's banged up, what does he look like? And some of these guys are impact players. And, I understand. I kind of like am feeling that with Indy. I was thinking like, hey, they had such a great start to last year, and then obviously Daniel Jones gets hurt, and the wheels just come off. But there was a lot to like about Indy. Their formula was really, really tough to beat. But I feel like that sort of surprise is good in year one, and then teams now have the film. They know what to expect from the Indianapolis Colts. So, that kind of team won't really sneak up on anybody. Now, of course, I think Indy could be good. If everybody's healthy, ready to go, I think Indy could be, pretty solid team, in the 10-win territory, maybe
Yeah.
make the playoffs for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if they take a big step back, quite frankly. I'm not saying they're going to, but that's just really where my head's at. But I did like the move they made. They picked up Keen Daddy. Keenan Allen's still balling.
They
He's been
needed
in
him.
a hot minute. I love the Keen Daddy pickup, man. I really do. That was pretty nice. But for me, man, like maybe this is low hanging fruit, but off the rip, the team that I'm thinking about that I'm fading, and I said this last year when they were in the middle of the hot streak because I said there's just no way this is like a one trick pony season. I was waiting on New England to get saddled with the first place schedule. Um, New England, look, they did it last year, but their schedule was so fucking
So easy.
so easy. Um, and now you look at this year, they're playing the first place schedule. They're at Seattle on Wednesday. The Wednesday kickoff. When was the last time the NFL did a Wednesday kickoff? I feel like it's been a minute, at least for my memory. But they're at Seattle. What's really changed for the Patriots other than adding AJ Brown? And I like AJ Brown, but they have to go to Seattle on the first game of the year, Wednesday, the opening kickoff. What's changed for New England? I don't know. Other than AJ Brown, then they get Pittsburgh. Then they're at Jacksonville. I think that could be a tough game for them. And they're at Buffalo. Then they get a couple layups with Vegas and the Jets. Then they go to Chicago on Thursday night, which is my birthday, October 22nd. Then they're at Miami. That's a gimme. Then they come home to play Green Bay. Then I think they're international Detroit bye week at the Chargers, home to the Bills, home to the Vikings, at the Chiefs, at the Jets, home to Denver, home to Miami. So, I mean, obviously there's plenty of layups in there for them, but I mean, there's some big hitters here. I feel like the Patriots are primed to take a step back. I mean, I just don't know if I'm seeing like this high win total from them again. I feel like I count at least 7 or 8 losses in there. But what do you think about the Patriots this year?
I'm pretty low on the Patriots as a whole, just because their schedule's remarkably more difficult. What's their schedule rank? I have it right here. AFC East schedule rank. What I have them rated at? That's Dolphins, Patriots. I had their schedule was at the fifth hardest schedule in this for the season.
I mean,
Um,
they're lucky because they get the Jets and the Dolphins twice, and they get the Raiders.
Imagine if they didn't have the Jets, Dolphins twice, and then the Raiders. That would
Yeah.
be one of the most brutal schedules, if not the most brutal schedule. I also want to see. I want to see how this offensive line takes shape because they got away with some fairly soft pass rushing for the opposition. Can they take the next step? Will Campbell take the next step? Is like kind of my biggest question. Like, is he ready to be a big time, big money left tackle?
Yeah, that's a big question, dude. That really is. And you know, I feel like it's easy to pick on the Patriots. A lot of people that saw them, win so many games and go to the Super Bowl last year was like, look, it was like that kind of year where it was like a 1 year wonder where a lot of these teams that in most seasons will just not go that far and win that many games, and then the next year they come crashing back down to reality. One team I'm really interested. This is probably the team I'm most interested in the entire NFL coming into the year.
Who's
I feel like
that?
a lot of people are as well. What are you making of the Cincinnati Bengals?
Oh man. Um I'm I'm Luke. I'm actually I'm room temp. I'm room temp on the Bengals. They have an opportunity to climb really, really fast in my rankings, but I'm really just kind of looking at the Bengals thinking you have a pretty good division, right? Like a winnable division, but you have to get better offensive line play. Joe Burrow has to stay healthy, but offensively, they have no excuses outside of the offensive line to have arguably the best, one of the best offenses in the league. Got to get better play out of the secondary as well. Um, like until this team can stop the pass, it's going to be a pretty tough season. Where else did I have them? Oh, and they need someone to step up and take that putting pressure on the quarterback, take that serious role of who's going to be the man getting after the quarterback. It wasn't a great sack season for this team. I think what they had one person have over 7 sacks, which is not good. Like you need someone to get after it, preferably two, but it's kind of tied together, right? If you think about it, if you're
Yeah.
not getting after the quarterback, then your secondary is not going to be as good. Not saying their secondary is full of bad players, but it's just you got these guys on an island and the quarterback's getting ample time to throw the ball. So probably fix that. I'd probably just say fix the trenches altogether.
Yeah, I mean the AFC North, man. I think it's going to be the Bengals and the Ravens.
Yep.
Cleveland's got a lot of growing to do. Obviously, take a huge step back. They lose Miles Garrett. Obviously, they get Jared Verse. I'm sure Jared Verse isn't too happy about being the centerpiece in that deal. Steelers, man, like how many times over the years do we say the Steelers really aren't going to go anywhere? But they end up having a winning season and they scrap out these games and they're very competitive and throughout the Mike Tomlin era and that's over. Mike Tomlin, great coach for 20 years, no more. It's Mike McCarthy, a coach that I absolutely love to fade. So it's really, it's the Ravens and the Bengals. And the Ravens, obviously, for the first time in almost 20 years, don't have John Harbaugh. Look, I personally thought it was way past Harbaugh's due. Like Harbaugh was good enough to get them to a certain point, but obviously, Ravens faithful will tell you throughout the years there was a lot of bad coaching decisions, clock management challenges, just a whole bunch of stuff. And
Yep.
what does that new era with Baltimore look like? Lamar Jackson, the window's still open, but it's closing. Lamar Jackson isn't 24 anymore. He's time's starting to tick for him. So he's got to really start honing in to try and get that Super Bowl in the playoffs. So I mean, look, here's the end of the day. This is why I have trouble with the Bengals. They're so much fun, aren't they? Their offense, when they're humming, they're a fun team to bet. People want to bet the overs and the player props and the Bengals and this. But the thing is, as it always is, what is their defense going to look like? It's a big pickup with Dexter. What the fuck? What am I missing? Who the fuck they pick up from the Giants?
Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence. Sexy
Yeah.
Dexy. Sorry, I was blanking on his name. But Dexter Lawrence they picked up. Really the thing though, aside from the defense with the Bengals, the thing that bothers me, Zach Taylor, man. Is Zach Taylor is he going to continue to get in their way? It's always an issue with Zach Taylor doing something stupid at the end of a game, critical time, clock management issues. Like that's always been a problem for Cincy. Obviously they went to the Super Bowl in 2021, but really after that, there's only been so much success. Of course, there's been injuries included in that, but I like the Bengals a lot, and of course, if everything goes right, could they go back to the Super Bowl? Could they have a team like they did in 2021? Absolutely. But it's a big if. And I think with Cincy, it's one of those instances where if you think they're going to really be able to make that run, assuming they stay healthy, it's a pick your spot moment for them. I mean, you look at their schedule. Home to Tampa Bay. Now we know, obviously, anybody that's watched Cincy over the last 6 years in the Joe Burrow era, they've been terrible in the opening two games. Terrible. Of course, last year they won. They won the first two, which is the only time they've done that in the Joe Burrow era. They're a notoriously slow starter. They open with Tampa Bay. Now, while I think the Bucs are going to take a step back, I probably would be taking a look at Tampa in that first game. Then they go to Houston. They go to Pittsburgh, home to Jacksonville. Then they're at Miami. Then the bye. Then they go to Baltimore, home to Tennessee. They play Atlanta International, Steelers, at Washington, home to New Orleans, who I think is going to be a sleeper this year, at Cleveland. Then they close out with Kansas City, Carolina, Colts, Ravens, Cleveland. It's not a terrible schedule. This is a schedule where they can definitely win 10, maybe 11 games. But, it's what kind of Bengals team is going to show up ultimately.
Yeah, man. It's an interesting team. Like I feel like every year we want the Bengals to be good because we just know how talented that offense is. And it feels like you said it with Lamar Jackson. It feels like we're wasting years of Joe Burrow. And it's not great. Like
Yeah.
sucks.
Um, yeah. But Brad, let's get into some NFC division winners.
Yeah.
Now, of course, just to keep it simple, all odds are from DraftKings. Obviously, shop around. But to start off, man, the NFC East, it's the Eagles 120, Cowboys 215, Commanders 475, Giants 6-1. Brad, are you biting the bait? Is it going to be Eagles again, or are you thinking maybe Dallas or Washington or even the Giants can make that run and flip the division?
No, well, first, I don't think it's going to be the Commanders. The Commanders have arguably the worst wide receiver core in the entire NFL, right? McLaurin, Antonio Williams, Damani, Burks, Luke. Like, it's not a
Sleeping on my
good
boy McLaurin? Why are you sleeping on Scary Terry?
Scary Terry, because he just has too many games where he's ineffective, right? He needs to be more consistent throughout the entire year. The running back room is going to be interesting. We'll see if Bill can get it done this year, or is it going to be Rashard White, who I don't like his advanced metrics. Obviously, the defense should be a lot better than it was last year. I think that Dan Quinn, anytime you have a Dan Quinn head coach or coordinator system, you're going to improve with another year under that system. For me, I went back and forth on this. I went back and forth on the Cowboys and the Eagles. And I think the value is on the Cowboys to win the division
Okay.
because the Cowboys' offensive attack this year can realistically be the best in the NFL without hesitation. Good running game, two legitimate outside options. Then you have the speed as well in the wide receiver core to stretch the field, reliable underneath tight end. Offensive line's pretty solid. Then they made some changes. They made some changes. Bland should be healthy as well on the defensive side. The Eagles, we know what they're going to get out of the Eagles. We're going to get a team that does what's necessary to get the job done. Probably is going to have some stinker games, but they're probably going to blow a lot of teams out. Losing AJ Brown, will it hurt? Will it not hurt? I think it's going to hurt more than people kind of realize. I'm not thinking that Dontavian Wicks, Mekhi Lemon, and Devonta Smith, that tandem is going to be good enough to replace the production of an AJ Brown. And it just feels like the Eagles, this happens a lot, right? It happens with a lot of teams that don't get this rejuvenation where they win a Super Bowl, then they're kind of removed from the Super Bowl after a couple years, and then the team kind of falls flat. One of the key players leaves. What happens to that team? But it's a team that's done well in the draft, so especially on the defensive side of the ball. So you know it's going to be competitive, but I I just feel like there's more upside to taking the Cowboys to win the division than it is to lay the price on the Eagles.
I buy it. Commanders, I'll be honest, man. Like, I could see what you're saying with the Commanders, but Jaden Daniels back healthy. I'm not sleeping on Washington. I think there's some things we need to figure out with Washington. Obviously, they lose Debo. They basically trade him for they swap him for Stephon Diggs essentially. Diggs 1,000 yards last year, but how much can you actually rely on him? Scary Terry, cross team merit maybe could be solid this year. So I understand, like, there's a lot of what ifs with Washington, but we saw it a couple of years ago, man, when Jaden Daniels was at his best. Like, that's a playmaker. So that's why I can't fully count out Washington, but I understand what you're saying. Like, that would probably be, let me see what Washington looks like after like the first 4, 5, 6 weeks and decide maybe, if I want to trade a price for better information. Um, and let, I'm curious because you missed out the Giants. No love for the Giants at all. I feel like that's the popular sleeper. So I had to ask you and get your thoughts on that one.
I feel like the Giants are going to be a fun team, and a lot of people are probably going to try to bet on John Harbaugh. They added some more reinforcements to that running back room today as well. Malik Neighbors is healthy. Our receiver room is nice.
Well, he's
I
not
just
he's
feel
not
like
confirmed to go week 1 yet, is he?
no,
He's got a couple more. He's got a couple more hurdles to clear.
yeah. Um, I just feel like this team they have a lot. They have a lot of work to do, and I was gonna say they could be like the Jaguars, right? Like could be like the Jaguars going from worst to first. It could happen, but I just feel like the step is so much higher for them to take um, than the Jaguars had.
Hmm. That's not unfair. I think that's a pretty fair look. The Giants are going to be fun, man. I'm going to be excited to watch the Jackson Dart, Cam Scat, Malik Neighbor show. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of those games where they're going to be competitive. They're going to be fun. You know, maybe they can win 7, 8 games possibly. Who knows? But really, I do understand the sentiment on the Giants. Got to prove it first, but 6-1's a nice price. That's a real nice price. The Giants have a lot of winnable games. They have a tough stretch towards the end, but really, man, you look at the first 7 games. Home to Dallas, home game Sunday night. That's winnable. They're at the Rams. They'll probably lose, but maybe that's competitive. Home to the Titans, home to the Cardinals, at Washington, home to the Saints, at the Texans, then the bye. I mean, realistically, they could be 4, possibly 5 wins heading into their bye. Interesting. I would say for me though, first look right now, I think this is probably one of the best teams Dallas has had in years.
Yeah.
And, big pickup for Caleb Downs in the draft. I really love that pick. Maybe the top defensive player, in this draft. I feel like this is the chance for Dallas. Dak Prescott's getting up there. How many seasons does he have left? At least how many seasons does he have left as a really good quarterback? I feel like this is the shot for Dallas. Plus 215 in that territory is a pretty good price. I think right now, August 19th, with a few weeks left to go before the season, I feel like the Cowboys are the team to bet here in this division. Brad,
Yeah.
NFC North, Lions plus 170, Packers 225, Bears 305, Vikings 510. I was so disappointed when the Lions didn't win the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They blew it to Washington. I said that was their chance. That was it. And after they lost, I said that's it. Their window's closed. Lost Ben Johnson, lost Aaron Glenn. They some pieces went out the door with them. I mean, plus 170 though. That's a solid number. Or do we think the Bears have an encore this year? Do you think Green Bay gets back? Think the Vikings are a sleeper? The NFC North's a pretty interesting division to look at.
I probably would I have a hard time with this division because I have some glaring weaknesses for every team, and they're like dramatic weaknesses. First and foremost, the secondary for the Lions is absolutely scary, right? Was it DJ Reed, Rockison? They lose
Tyrion.
Terrion Arnold, but didn't think he was all that effective for them anyway. Their schedule's so easy though. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL. I think the 2 games where I'd probably be most concerned would be the road game against Buffalo, and then
2, by the way, Thursday night.
week 2, yeah, Thursday night, and then man, I probably feel like they should feel very happy except for the divisional away games, right? This could be a team where, and 2 of the hardest games they're going to play in their division are at the end of the season. This could be a team that has 1 loss heading into week 17. They're not all that frustrated about playing away at Chicago and then following that up by away at the Bears. I think their schedule sets up really nice for them. The Bears, could they do it again in year 2? I don't know, man. I have weird thoughts about the Bears because there were times when Caleb Williams looked like one of the best quarterbacks for this system, and then it looked like he was trying to be the man too much or trying to do too much and not let the system come to him. But I guess that's what you get out of a young, super talented quarterback. This is a team that also probably could be better on the defensive end of the football. Also, going to be some question marks about their receiving core health that I'm going to want to look into. Their running back room getting up there in age with Swift, and then Monungai dealing with some nagging injuries. So what does that lead me to? That leads me to the Green Bay Packers or the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers, I don't know, man. The Packers, I've gone back and forth on this. The Packers, if Micah Parsons can get back to full fitness, this is a team that's going to be scary on the defensive side of the ball because he is really what makes the defense so much better. The Vikings is probably the wild card for me. This was a team that when they had bad quarterback play, they were getting good defensive play. Well, now they should have better quarterback play, but can this defense hold up? Can this offensive line hold up? I'd probably, just because of the schedule strength, I'd probably have to go with the Detroit Lions as my winner of this division. And I actually have the Chicago Bears ranked second in my leaderboard here, but I don't think there's as much separation in this division as there was in the last.
I have questions on the Bears as well. Just because of the price, it's interesting. And I really like Luther Burden. I think Ben Johnson's going to try to get that Amon Ra 2.0 out of him. Like
Yeah.
we saw the jump for Luther Burden at the end of the year. And that's why they felt comfortable letting Keenan Allen walk out the door. Or I'm sorry, not Keenan Allen. Well, DJ Moore, I should say.
DJ Moore.
Comfortable letting DJ Moore go because said, you know what, Luther Burden is going to be the next Amon Ra. Ben
Yeah.
Johnson coached Amon Ra. We saw, like I said before, with Parker Washington, we saw the end of 2020 for Amon Ra, that really catapulted him into a star. They think that's Luther Burden. Maybe it is. But the thing about being a stud, you got to be consistent. Is Luther Burden going to consistently be a playmaker for Chicago this year? It's a big question mark. I think, Chicago is going to be an interesting team. Even at the 305, I got to say I'm probably not looking to back them, at least for the short term. But I got to say, man, Detroit really was not that great last year. They had a lot of stinkers. They had a lot of problems on
lot.
defense. Case in point, the Giants game last year. Giants game with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston was looking like vintage 2019 Tampa J-Mo on them.
Yeah.
It's a huge red flag. I mean, their offense is going to be so good. I get it. At the end of the day, I mean, the Lions are probably going to be the team. I just don't trust the Packers, man. The Packers just, to me, don't have that it factor. I get there's some talent on both sides of the ball. Obviously, what is Micah Parsons? What's his health? Is he going to be good to go? That's obviously a huge factor for Green Bay throughout the years is what Micah Parsons is doing. But, I just feel like there's a lot of issues with Green Bay, in my opinion. But honestly, we really sleeping on the Vikings? I mean, look, man, I think the team that I'd be really interested in is Minnesota. Minnesota's got Jettas. They got Addison. They picked up Jawan Jennings. They still got Hawk. They got Aaron Jones. They got Jordan Mason. They have a defense that's still really, really talented.
Yeah.
They have a coach that won a Coach of the Year a couple years ago, Kevin O'Connell. I mean, listen, Kyler Murray, before, the whole downtick started, this was a guy that was being regarded as a top 10 quarterback. It's not as much Kyler Murray's talent. It's more of like, does he actually give a fuck? What's his effort level look like? I mean, I think at the price at 5'10", Kyler Murray is still a very, very solid quarterback that, with the weapons he has around him, can lead this Vikings team to a really strong season. Now, Brad, I understand, what you're talking about. The Lions are proving that, they've been there. They have the same core group of guys. But I don't know, man.
I don't mind taking the Vikings as
10. I mean,
yeah.
look, here's the big stretch to worry about. From week 7, Colts, then at Lions, Buffalo, Green Bay, San Francisco. Then they have Atlanta, Carolina. They're at New England, which I don't really think is a huge problem. Then it's Detroit, Washington, Jets, Chicago. I don't think their schedule is a layup, but I also don't think it's a gauntlet. I think they have a tough stretch in the middle, but I think this is a team that can win maybe 10, 11 games. I wouldn't be surprised. The thing is, if Kyler Murray has a different attitude and an effort level and he wants to be there and he just does his job, this team's nucleus is built for success. They have all the pieces around them. What is, other than Kyler Murray, what is the big fear with taking Minnesota?
Nothing. Is probably just, see, this is, I think my biggest fear about Minnesota is probably their offensive line, but it changes when you have a Kyler Murray back there.
Yep.
That RPO action is going to make their offensive line so much better. I think it's just kind of fear of. I think it's just fear of. I don't even know, fear of Kyler Murray. Can he be healthy? Can he stay healthy throughout the entire season? Like you said, will the effort level be there from a game to game standpoint, from a down to down standpoint? I think it will. They're like my sleeper of the division, but I'm not all the way there yet.
I mean, I'll be honest, man. Like, if Minnesota comes out week one, beats Green Bay, and I think they will, I'll probably be betting Minnesota in that week one game against the Packers. And then they go to Chicago in September. It's not cold. I think they could beat Chicago. Like, I think that'll be a traditional like slugfest between the Bears and the Vikings. If they win that game, then they go to Tampa in week three. Then they play Miami. Then they play New Orleans before they have an early bye. There is a I would say at least a decent chance that they could be 4-1, 5-0 heading into their bye.
Yeah.
It's not out of the realm. It's not like this crazy long shot. Will it happen? Probably not. But I gotta say, man, 4-1. They split between Green Bay and Chicago. I think they go into Tampa Bay, beat them, home to Miami. They should destroy them. Then they're at New Orleans. I mean, that could be a tricky game. Saints are on the come up, but I think this is a team that I think we have to take seriously because remember this, man. Sam Darnold a couple of years ago, nobody took that team seriously. What is the large difference between that Vikings team with Sam Darnold and this Kyler Murray led Vikings team? Not a whole lot. For the most part, it's just about the same. There's maybe a couple different pieces on defense, maybe the O-line, but for the most part, it's about the same. At the end of the day, do the Vikings win the division? Probably not. But at 5-10, I definitely would take a piece.
Yeah.
For me, though, it's either the Lions or the Vikings. All right, what about the South? Bucks plus 170, Saints 270, Panthers 310, Falcons 4. Brad, I love our Bucks, but 170? I don't think so, my man. Tell me why it's New Orleans.
Tell you why it's New Orleans.
You're picking New Orleans, I know you. You're not picking Carolina. You still have questions about Carolina.
Yeah, I have a lot of question marks about Carolina. I'm gonna pick New Orleans. I think Tyler Shuck is going to be a very good quarterback. I don't know. I don't know if anybody heard me talk about this. I can't remember what show I was on. I did a breakdown of this division as being a Bucks fan, and I thought the Saints have a really, really good schedule. Yes, obviously they play Detroit and they have some
Baltimore.
tough. Yeah, was it Baltimore? I think I remember the other one. Some tough situations, but this is a team that has the opportunity to get better. Their secondary is still relatively young, which could take a next step. I heard this out of camp that Chase Young is looking like old Chase Young. You already know Cam Jordan's going to give you a ton. Historically, the Saints have had a good defense. They've taken some step back quite recently. I think a lot of that has to do with not being able to sustain drives and not being on the field. I mean, and not getting rest, being on the field the whole game. Now Tyler Shuck, Travis Etienne, a healthy-ish Chris Olave. I think they go as far as health takes them. They're a good shout to win the division. I do like the Bucks a lot still. Re-signing Vita Vea was massive for them. I think it's natural to question this wide receiver core. You have three players in your wide receiver core who are going to lead in snaps, who all three have major injury concerns, right? Like McMillan's still not practicing 100%. Godwin obviously coming off that horrific injury, and Mbuka has been having his injuries as well. I do think they did good in the draft to kind of eliminate those issues, but I still am not 100% sure on the Bucks. Also, I want to see what Zach Robinson does to this offense. I think Zach Robinson has a mix of great talent and a mix of what the heck are you doing? So for me, I think the Saints provide the most upside. This is going to be a clusterfuck of a division, like always, though.
Yeah. I'm going New Orleans. I love what I saw from New Orleans last year. I like what I saw from Carolina at the end. Those are the two teams that I think they're on the upswing. Atlanta and Tampa are on the downswing. And believe me, I hate to say it, um, but look, man, I think obviously as long as Baker Mayfield's under center, Tampa has a shot. I love what I saw from Baker. I'm a big Baker guy. We talked about that last year. But he got killed at times with the O line. The defense was a nosebleed. I just, I don't think Tampa's going to be able to sustain throughout the whole year. Realistically, this could be a division where 8 wins gets it done. Tampa's always got a shot, even at plus 170 with Baker. Obviously, the best division in the quarterback in the division. Sure, but you could get New Orleans for plus 270. I think Carolina is trending in the right direction. They have work to do. I think honestly, this is one of those things where New Orleans and Carolina could be fighting it out. At the end of the year, like the last game between them is week 14. Like I think that could be one of those big swing games. And you look at New Orleans, they play Tampa Bay twice in the last 4 weeks, week 15 and week 18, and then they play Atlanta week 17. Maybe New Orleans, Tampa fights for the division. Who knows? Carolina, I don't think is there yet. I think they're going to be fun, but I don't think they're there yet. Atlanta, look, man, I get it. Stefanski's the coach now. You still got Bijan. It's going to be a big year for him. Lundy, Kyle Pitts. Buddy, it's the same thing. I've been a Falcons fan for over 20 years. They don't have a defense. They've never had a defense. They have some good defensive players, and they have their moments. But then the bigger problem is what's going on with the quarterback situation. Penix trying to come back. Tua, no, man, I don't want that. I love Michael Penix, but with the injury, it really is not something I'm looking to get involved in. I just think New Orleans is the better bet. But I will say this: in terms of betting, if you like the Saints, I'm probably going to wait for them to most likely lose the first 2 games. They're probably going to lose at the Lions and lose at the Ravens in the first 2 games. And then if you look to maybe bet them in week 3 against Vegas, where they play Vegas, Atlanta, Minnesota, the Giants, the Steelers, bye week, Cleveland, Carolina, Chicago, Cincy, Green Bay, Carolina, and then they finish with basically a division run at the end. I think you're going to get obviously a much better price on New Orleans in week 3. So that's where I would hold off to bet the Saints. All right, last but not least, we have the West. Rams minus 105, Seahawks 215, Niners 305, Cardinals 100-1. Brad, I got to say, man, I think the Niners will be interesting again. Like it's not groundbreaking. But Seattle, I'm a little surprised that they're not getting as much respect, being the Super Bowl champs. The big losses for them, Kenny Walker's gone, Tariq Woolen, two names to highlight. But I feel like 215 is a big number. Sure, they're in second place. I'm not ready to bet the Niners. I still think there's a lot of issues with them. Seattle 215, did the Rams improve that much? Obviously, they added Myles Garrett. They added Trent McDuffie. But in my opinion, this Rams team rings so similar to the 2021 team. Their top players were elite. They had top-tier talent. But then there was a big gap between their top tier and then their next tier. And they were so star-studded in terms of relying on a small key group of guys that if, God forbid, something happens to a couple of them, they're in trouble. That 2021 team had the same makeup of this team. But the only difference is that team obviously won the Super Bowl, but none of those guys really got hurt. So is the Rams is it too good to be true, or are we betting the Rams at negative money before the season even starts?
I just feel like the Rams are in a perfect spot to win the division because of the fact the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. It's just so hard in a competitive division to win back-to-back. Now you're doing it after you won the Super Bowl. Teams typically kind of take a little bit of a breather after they hit that climax, right? Where they're like, okay, we're legit. We did it. It's hard to come with that same energy. We'll see what that veteran leadership does. Losing Kenneth Walker and then Zach Charbonnet being hurt as well doesn't do the Seahawks any favors. The Rams are going to be so freaking good getting after the quarterback, right? They were already one of the best teams in the NFL at pressuring the quarterback without sending any blitzes. That just means their secondary has better chance of defending well. Now they add McDuffie, which makes them even better or gives them a better shot. It was never the offense for the Rams. It was the defensive lapses, especially late in games. I think the Rams win the division.
I hate to say it. I agree with you. I think the Rams are going to be a great team this year. I just, if everybody stays healthy, I think Stafford, I know, what does he have, 2 years left on his deal? I mean, I know this guy's always in pain. He's got to take, these epidural shots, before the season. But this NFC West is going to be good, minus the Cardinals. But the Cardinals will probably be fun in some of these games with Brissett and Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, etc. But I agree with you. I like Seattle, but after winning the Super Bowl, it's hard to be like that good again. I think they'll be good still. I don't think Seattle's going to have like a down year, but I just think I think the Rams are loading up, man. I feel like they sense this is like the last shot for Stafford to get one more for the franchise.
Yeah.
Like, Stafford, I think 2 years left on his deal. He's pushing 40. How many more big years does Stafford have left? I think if you're the Rams front office, you have to treat every year in this like little stretch as your last shot. They spared no expense. They went to go get Myles Garrett. They even got Aaron Donald potentially coming out of retirement. Maybe Donald comes back at some point this year. Who knows? But I think this is the Rams, dude. I really do. I think the Rams are going to be awesome. I think Puka is going to be an offensive player of the year contender. I mean, obviously, we're depending on if he gets suspended at all. Who knows? Still got the two-headed monster in the backfield. You got Tay, Stafford, like a defense that should be pretty good, should be a big step up from last year. Like, I know last year in the first half they had some really good moments, but then they started bleeding down the second half. But I mean, also you look at their schedule; it's not terrible. Week 1 against the Niners, the opener Thursday night. That's the Thursday night game. Then they're home to the Giants on Monday night. They're at Denver, at Philly, home to Buffalo. That's a tough little stretch. But then they open up with the next phase of the season: Arizona, Vegas, Chargers, Washington, Zona, bye. They realistically could win their last 5 games heading into the bye. Of course, the Buffalo game, who knows? Then they have Green Bay, KC, Niners again, Dallas, Seattle, Tampa, Seattle. So the second half is tough after the bye. But I don't know, man. I think the Rams are probably a 12-win team. Maybe more.
Yeah.
So with that being said, your NFC winner, is it going to be the Rams, or do you have anybody else in mind that maybe you're looking at?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Rams. This just feels like the Rams were so close last year. Their secondary was toast between injuries and just being bad. They're my NFC winner, and I don't think it's going to be particularly competitive amongst anyone else. And what I mean by that is the Rams are going to be in the title game, and then you could make an excuse or an argument for a lot of other teams to be in the title game.
Yeah, of course, that comes into seeding. Listen, I don't think the Rams are going to run away with the division, though. Like, I don't think this is going to be one of those cases where the Rams a 15-win team.
Yeah.
It could be. But I think the Rams realistically are 12, 13 wins, that's a great season. But I feel like I still see the Niners being like 11 wins. I feel like Seattle's going to be maybe like 10, 11 wins. I think this is going to be a close division overall. But I agree, man. I have the Rams. I'm going with the chalk here in the 3-1 neighborhood. I don't see Seattle going back to back. It's incredibly difficult. I know it's been done in recent years, but I feel like Seattle took it from the Rams last year. Last year was their year. The Eagles, I just don't see as being better than the Rams. Same thing with the Packers or the Lions or the Niners or the Bears or the Cowboys or any of the other teams in the NFC. I think the Rams are the clear cut best team in the NFL this year. I think they're definitely the NFC. I think they're arguably the best team in the NFL, but I think clear cut they're the best in the NFC. And then I think it's Seattle and maybe San Francisco. And then you could start going down with like the Eagles in that third tier with the Lions and the Bears and maybe the Cowboys. And then I think that's it. What about the AFC? Division winners, Bills, Pats, Jets, Dolphins. We could run through these quick. I think it's going to be the Bills. I think New England got lucky last year with their schedule. I think the Bills are chomping at the bit. They pick up DJ Moore, Josh Allen. They're hungry. It's a new regime. I think Buffalo is all systems go this year.
Yeah, I think the Bills are probably are going to get back to their glory. The Patriots had a really good run, had a really things went right for them. They owned the Bills number. Josh Allen is now a married man. He's living life really healthy. They break in a new stadium. A lot of that just kind of changes the way the vibe for the team. Adding DJ Moore was pretty significant as well. I have the Bills. I have the Bills winning the division. We'll see what they do in terms of getting after the quarterback this year, right? A little up there in age on that defensive line, but still some really good players.
What about the AFC? Sorry, give me a sec. I'm bugging here. Give me a sec. My ticker's off here. I gotta wait for it to come back around. But what about the AFC North? Are we looking at the Ravens? Are we looking at the Bengals, Steelers, Cleveland? The prices came back around. The Ravens are a decent favorite at -112. Then it's Cincy at 184, Steelers and Browns.
I have the Ravens winning
Yeah.
it. I have the Ravens winning it. They have all of the pieces to have a really good defense. Now they bring in Jesse Minter, who specializes in creating really good defenses. I think situationally they should be better. Probably couldn't have been as poor situationally as they were last year. I have heard great things out of Jacoby Lane too. He's going to be an X factor for that offense. Yes, Zay Flowers got paid. Zay Flowers is going to be the number one target getter, but Jacoby Lane's going to be a huge X factor for Lamar. I have the Ravens. I just don't trust the Bengals are going to protect the quarterback. I don't trust that their defense is going to take that next step. And then the Steelers and the Browns. The Steelers, they'll be a borderline wild card team. And then the Browns, I actually think the Browns would probably be best off just a tank, man. The Browns have like so many really nice pieces, but the team's just not good yet. And I don't think they're going to be a team that really can compete for the division. If this Browns team tanks, they get a top 3 pick, they have a quarterback, or they could trade down even further to like a top 5, top 6, and they can they can once again get a quarterback at 5, but then they'll have another pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is Ravens. Ravens are proven. I understand it's a new regime, but this is still a pretty good Ravens team, and the rest of the division is very unsure. Cincinnati, I think they're going to be the popular pick because they're the popular pick every year, like this
Yeah.
year, but they haven't proven it lately. I understand that maybe they beefed up a little bit on the defensive side, and you got Burrow and Chase and Higgins and Chase Brown. I get it, man, but at the end of the day, Baltimore's been the proven steady team that has always managed to do their job. So I think the Ravens are a pretty good price, and I will roll with them. Brad, AFC South. This one's going to be interesting. Texans 110, Jags 245, Colts 380, and Titans 8-1. I understand the Texans defense is disgusting. Last year, we kept going back and forth. Seattle Texans. Who's got the better defense? Despite CJ Stroud being a large disaster for most of it. But I don't know, man. Like, as good as the Texans defense is, can't rely on Stroud to be, what he was as a rookie. And their receiver room is a disaster. Other than Nico Collins, which obviously he's a stud, their secondary pieces are very much in question. I think this is Jaguars at 245.
Man, I think the Jaguars win. I just have I just have this stinking suspicion, sneaky suspicion that the Texans are going to be looking for a quarterback next year.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is going to be the best in the league. That's literally without question. They keep adding pieces. They're drafting smart, and they were already good. And whether it's fair or not, right? Like, because you have Tank Dell coming back from injury, Jaden Higgins just tore his ACL. Nico Collins has been battling the injury bug, so it's not like this team is complete in terms of having all the puzzle pieces for CJ Stroud to throw to. I just don't think CJ Stroud's that good of a quarterback, and they're going to be a team looking for a quarterback for the answer because they don't want to waste this elite defense. But on the other side, talking about the Jaguars, I think the Jags, we talked about them already, are going to have a really good team.
Yeah,
I like the Jags. I like this team that Liam Cohen's building.
it's a good price too. I think we talked about it. Parker Washington, I think, is set to explode this year. I think that's going to be like one of those fantasy steals. I don't think he's going to win the offensive player of the year or anything like that per se, but I think there's going to be some interesting season long futures you can take for him. Um, any love for the Titans at 8-1? Like any shot that you think that maybe we were a year early last year on them, or you think they're still a little bit away?
I think they're a ways away. So much would have to break right for this team. Um, Like I'm not sold on their backfield yet. Cam Ward didn't look good in his first game. I know he's gonna in the first preseason. I know he's gonna get better eventually. Getting Carnell Tate's a really huge addition for their team. Wandell Robertson, the guy underneath. I just think they're just going to be okay. Defensively, they'll get better, right? Salah comes in. They have then offensively with Brian Dable. But I don't think they're there yet. I think this is like a 2-year project for them. And then in 2 years, we're coming back around this conversation. Like, if they keep making the right moves, if they keep drafting well, can keep Salah and Dable together, keep Cam Ward, it'll be a team that we talk about in 2 years. But this is probably a 3-year project with Cam Ward.
What about the AFC West? Chiefs, juicy plus 160. Chargers are ahead of the Broncos plus 190. And then you got the Broncos in the 2+ spot, and then obviously the Raiders are way down the list here. Um, Patrick Mahomes back. You think Kansas City does it, or does Denver stay hot again?
I man, I bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. I bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl because it was 18-1. This is a Chiefs team that's going to have a healthier than we probably expect. Patrick Mahomes, Ken Walker leading the backfield. Rashee Rice is going to be healthy. I heard a lot of good things out of Cypress Allen. I think he's going to be a really integral part of that wide receiver core. And then this defense, they have freaking Steve Spagnuolo, who's going to be the most important piece, more important than any player on that team. The defense is going to play better than it did last year. I think you're getting really great value on the Chiefs. They're a team that's just not going to go away, in my opinion.
I agree. I like Denver a lot this year. Denver winning the AFC West last year was one of my big division plays. And I think Denver. We talked about Denver at the top of the show. I think Denver is going to be really good this year. I think Denver is going to have a shot to really make some noise and make that trek to the Super Bowl. That being said, I feel like this is Kansas City's time. They sucked last year. They were
Yeah.
not good. Mahomes did not have a good year. Then he gets hurt. I think this kid's going to be hungry. Like, look, Mahomes obviously won multiple Super Bowls. He's won multiple MVPs. He's starting to enter, I don't want to say the downturn of his career, but he's starting to enter that era. Like the wow factor of him in his 20s. He accomplished so much. He built a Hall of Fame career just off his 20s. But now he's starting to enter into the 30s, and I feel like for Mahomes, this is the year. Like how Tom Brady won a few Super Bowls at the early part of his career, then there was a long, long layover, and then in the back half of his career, put together a few more. I
Yeah.
think this is kind of the thing we're going to see. I feel like we're going to see Kansas City over the next like 5 years or so really get back to being that dominant team and pick up at least one or two more Super Bowls. I think Mahomes has at least one or two Super Bowls left in him. And I think after the year they had, there's no better time for Kansas City to get back to showing the NFL who they are. And as much as I like Denver, and I like I said again, I think Denver's going to be a really good team. I think they're a worthwhile bet, but I'm going to bet Kansas City, man. I think this is Kansas City's time. I think they're going to get back to being the team that we just were enamored by for the last
Yeah.
whatever 7 years. All right, in the AFC, obviously it's a crowded field, but Jesus, dude, look at this. Chiefs at 770 to win the AFC. Is that your bet?
That is my bet. And I will go down with the ship. Like we have to remember, right? We're not predicting who's going to win. Like that's not our MO. Our MO is predicting who has the most value to win. And at that price, it's hard to argue with the Chiefs, man.
Yeah. I mean, the Patriots have better odds to go to win the AFC than the Chiefs. I
Yep.
mean, look, I think the Ravens are 470 is not a bad price, but I think them being the favorite and they haven't proven it yet, that's just a tough ask for me. Buffalo being five in the 5-1 territory to win the AFC, that's a good price. But again, like the Ravens, that same sort of sentiment. Neither of those teams have won or even made a Super Bowl with
Yep.
Allen or Lamar under center. And like I get it. Every year, this is the year. Like they're gonna do it. Look, man, I think both teams are gonna be good, but I'm not betting on a team that hasn't done it over, some of these other groups. Like
Yeah.
Patriots, no way. Chiefs,
Yep.
yes. Chargers, no. Texans, no. Bengals, no. I think the two teams to bet is going to be the Broncos and the Chiefs. I think if you're gonna bet two teams, I'm targeting those two. What about your Super Bowl pick? Early prediction here.
Early predictions. I have Chiefs Rams banger Super Bowl. It's going to be one of the best Super Bowls we've ever watched. And then somehow Patrick Mahomes writes the most epic comeback story off a major injury, sails off into the sunset, not retired, but just the offseason sunset, being super
You
stoked
can't
for
say
how
that.
this what?
You can't say that. Sails off into the sunset.
I'm saying like he just it puts a let's put it this way. He puts a bow on an amazing comeback. He wins comeback player of the year, wins Super Bowl MVP. It's gonna be a great story.
Listen, the comeback player of the year is something separate. We're gonna get into awards next week. I understand he's coming off a big injury, but I mean, come on, the guy played almost a full season.
Yeah,
Comeback
it's
player, like,
stupid.
come on, bro, it's so stupid. Um, I hate this because I think we had the same prediction last year. I'm gonna agree with you. I hate to agree with you. We had the Bucks Chiefs last year, but I think it's gonna be the Chiefs Rams this year. I think it's the clear cut best NFC team, and I think it's an AFC team that a lot of people forgot about. And you're getting Kansas City in the 16-1 neighborhood, man. That's a very very interesting number. And look, I think this is one of the few times that we've ever and will ever get a discount on the Chiefs in the Patrick Mahomes era. Every year they're no bigger than 10-1. When in the middle of the Chiefs fucking hurricane, they were at largest 10-1. They're always like 8-1, 9-1, 7-1. You're getting 16-1. A lot of people think this team's over. They're done.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Brad doesn't think so. Now, in terms of who wins, I think it's going to be the Rams.
That's fair.
I think the Rams are going to win, but and I hate to say it, but I just think the Rams are going to have a little bit of an edge. But 550, I'm not betting on the Rams right now. I think that's too small of a number at this early of a point. But I will be betting on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl as well because I think 16-1 is too big to pass up, and you get Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl in the playoffs. Like, that's something I'm always going to take. But I think preseason the Rams, that team is going to be disgusting. But in terms of a betting opportunity, I don't see it, man. Maybe there's a time throughout the year that the Rams, lose a few games and their number drops a little bit, but that's a tough sell for me at 550, in middle August.
Yeah.
All right, that pretty much wraps up the show. Brad, do you have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, man. Thanks for everyone who took some time to watch us. I'm excited. Football season's almost here. Make sure you check us out on Wednesdays and on Sundays. We had a great season last year. I was actually just talking to my wife about it. I was like, dude, we made so much money last year. I hope we still have the same success.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We had a really good show. We had a lot of people in here. And don't forget, we're going to run this back. Brad, you good for next Wednesday, bud?
I am.
Next Wednesday, same time, we're going to start getting into some player futures, some awards, and really being able to narrow down on the handicaps for the season. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Have a great night.